4.3 billion people live across this vast continent called Asia. And we are telling their stories. On this edition, a long journey to school, climbing mountains, and crossing rivers with children in the southern Philippines just to get a class. Manning up through the school system. 2 unique classes in Shanghai experiment with new methods to develop boys into confident men. And a stroke of luck gave this caddy-turned-golfer a glimmer of hope. Now he's paying it forward by teaching the game in the slum.
I'm Barnaby Lowe, and this is Assignment Asia. Welcome to the program. One of the key things every parent wants for their child is to have a good education. But here in the Philippines, education isn't on a level playing field. The rich can send their kids to private schools, but lower-income families have to rely on an often inadequate public system.
There are about 100 million people in the Philippines. More than a third are under the age of 15. Economists say this could be an advantage because the country is experiencing an economic boom. But to realize the Filipino youth's full potential, government must address public education issues. And there are plenty of them, from lack of classrooms to the lack of qualified teachers. In some of the most far-flung areas, there isn't even a school to go to. We traveled to the southern Philippines, to the mountain village of Dagum in Zamboanga del Sur. There, we saw just how difficult it is for some kids to get to school. It's only 6 in the morning, but 9-year-old Jessa, her brother Julex, and their little sister Jelsa are ready to go to school. Never mind that they haven't had breakfast, or that they've got nothing packed for lunch. Class doesn't start till 9, but these kids don't have a minute to waste.
So the kids are off to school right now, and they said it's going to take about an hour to get to school, but we actually took the same path coming here, and it took us more than a couple of hours to get here. So I know this is going to be one hell of a trek. This is actually really hard. And you know, to give you a fairly good picture of just how far this place is from the city where there's an airport, it took us about a day of land travel and foot travel to get to this place. So this is really one hell of an adventure.
From the river, Jessa, Julex, and Jelsa will have to walk up and down this narrow path. Across some very rocky and muddy terrain. They need to cross another river before changing into their school uniforms. And then they walk some more. And while it's all become part of their daily routine, none of it, they say, has gotten easy.
Lisod kayo ko tabokon. Og danlog po kayo kung umuulan.
Minsan ba natatakot ba kayo pag umuulan?
Oo, kay bahaan man mi.
Pero pasok pa rin kayo sa eskwela?
Oo.
Jessa, Julex, Jelsa, and 4 other siblings come from a long line of Subanons, a local tribe that has long inhabited these mountains. Their parents, Romeo and Dolores, support the family by panning for gold along this river. Though the hours are long and the earning meager.
Maningkamot lang yung kog pre-gold. Aron maka-eskwela yung akong mga anak. Maubunay ako ang ambisyon, bahalag ako'y grado, basta ako ang mga anak maka-eskwela bisag dili tuod maka-graduate kay pobre man ko. Basta kay naay maka-eskwela bisag gamay lang.
Dagom Elementary is the only school in this mountain community. There are only 3 classrooms, 2 of which are divided between 2 levels. Janet Simafranca teaches both 3rd and 4th grades in the same room at the same time.
Ay, kami nang gumagawa ng paraan kasi nga combi class kami, 3 and 4 ako. So yung ginagawa namin, so halimbawa magpabasa kami dito, tapos dito kami magle-lecture sa kabilang grade. Kami na ang gumawa ng paraan para mabigyan namin sila ng tamang leksyon.
In many ways, the problems here reflect the inadequacies in the Philippines' public education system. The lack of books, lack of classrooms, lack of teachers, and the deteriorating quality of education.
Hindi mo talaga mafo-force yung utak nila. Siguro dahil din sa ganun naman talaga pag walang masyadong laman yung tiyan natin, siyempre hindi rin masyadong magpa-function yung utak. Yung mga bata dito, yung minsan hindi sila pumapasok kasi pinapatulong sila sa mga magulang nila, paghahanap buhay. Ano mo na lang na naghahanap buhay sila, inuuna pa nila yung paghahanap buhay.
Despite all this, Jessa, Julix, and Jelsa are determined to finish their studies, even if they have to do it in the dark of the night. There is no electricity in this village. With only a tiny speck of light, they read, write, and draw. It's clear, even in this darkness, and even at a very young age, they know education is their only way out of poverty.
Ano gusto mo para sa mamili mo? Maraming pera? Maganda bahay? Gusto mo, paglaki mo, makabili ka sasakyan? Kotse? Oo. With little government aid, Jessa and her siblings will most likely need to continue making that long journey to school for some time to come. But in other remote areas in the Philippines, things are getting better. And it all started with social media.
Deep in the mangroves of Zamboanga City in the southern Philippines is Layag-Layag, a village built in the middle of the sea. Boats are the only mode of transportation, and until a couple of years ago, there wasn't enough to take all the kids here to school. That didn't stop them from going.
So this is how these kids used to go to school. They swim from this community where they live to the school inland, and it's about 2 kilometers of seawater that they swim, so that's quite a distance. And if you can see, I'm sure you can see that the water level is up to my waist, and I was told that this water can get even higher. So as you can see now, the water level is already up to the shoulders of these kids. When the water gets even higher, then they really have to swim. They can't wade in these waters.
Kung minsan malalim yung dagat, mababasa yung notebook namin. Tapos kung pupunta na kami dito sa eskwela, minsan hindi na kami makapunta dito kasi basa na lahat yung gamit namin. Tapos yung damit namin madumi na yung putik. Nakukuha na. Tapos yung paa namin nasusugatan na ng bato.
But things started to change in 2010 when a status update on blogger Jay Habaneta's Facebook page went viral. In a week's time, he and his friends were able to raise enough money to build 1 boat. Anton Lim, a native of Zamboanga City, was in charge of finding the community and the kids.
When we gave them the boat, actually, what they were excited about was not really the boat, but what the boat symbolized. They said, finally people are here, probably they will help us. Nobody knew they were there. So they thought they were forgotten. On our way back, so we sort of just looked at one another and said, what now? We gave them the boat already. And then suddenly we said, no, we cannot stop at 1 boat.
And so what began as one status message has grown into the Yellow Boat of Hope Foundation. Today, The over 300 school children in Layag-Layag can carry their bags without having to worry about their things getting wet.
Bakit bagong pag-asa yung pangalan ng ano?
Pag-asa namin para makaahon sa mahirap na buhay.
Our advocacy went from giving boats to increasing the kids' access to education. We're now more holistic. We don't just build boats, we build classrooms, schools, we have scholarships, we give school supplies. As Jay said, our country has over 7,000 islands. So this story will not be strange to other islands too.
There are now over 2,000 yellow boats sailing in more than 40 communities in the Philippines. But it will take more than these boats and volunteers to fill the gaps in the country's public education system.
President Benigno Aquino has added 2 more years to basic education, allowing children to study up to the 12th grade. But while they acknowledge it's a step in the right direction, critics of the government say it needs to invest a lot more to improve the quality and quantity of learning. Now stay with us when we come back.
Lessons in becoming a man, how schools in Shanghai are trying to address what many are calling a boy crisis.
Those of us who are lucky enough spend our formative years under classroom instruction. But 2 schools in the Chinese city of Shanghai are focusing on more than just what's in textbooks.
As Shi Wenjing tells us, they're aiming to address concerns many parents in the city have about their sons and the kind of men they'll grow up to be.
You can call this a little boy's paradise. There's baseball, car racing, table tennis, foosball. Playtime at Howard Tong Kindergarten gives male students an array of options. But the activities available have all been carefully considered and deliberately picked. These so-called manly pursuits aim to encourage these small boys to man up.
We noticed during the first school year, most of the children who were crying were boys. Boys need more time to adapt to a new environment compared to girls. 3 years have passed since we established this boys' club. We think our boys have developed quite well, and we've had a lot of positive feedback from their parents.
Howard Tong Kindergarten is tackling what some in China have dubbed a boys' crisis. Boys who grow up into young men who are overly sensitive and lack self-confidence, far from the impression most Chinese have of a successful man.
Idols ranging from pianist Lang Lang to Olympic champion Sun Yang and snooker star Ding Junhui.
Or even the late Lei Feng, a soldier in the 1950s whose stories of compassion and patriotism have become modern-day legend. All successful in their respective fields and possessing similar traits: strength, bravery, authority, and competitiveness. So the teachers at Howard Tong Kindergarten created this boys-only zone, where they can play for 30 to 40 minutes each day. This researcher says it is important to instill these values in them at an early age.
There are some activities that the boys are fond of which relate to strength and power. Some also reflect psychological qualities such as being brave and competitive. These traits are known as masculinity, which is carried in genes. They're brought out in certain environments. The boys' club provides such an environment. If our schools can have similar programs, the boys will easily develop these traits.
After playtime, it is a more structured lesson. Kung Fu focuses on both self-discipline and physical strength.
It is hope lessons learned at the kindergarten can remain with the boys at start primary schools. That's what many experts and parents say is the source of the problem. Chinese education focuses too much on academic study. not enough on developing personable and social skills.
The crisis actually refers to the problems boys face when they grow up. We focus too much on scores, so we miss out on getting boys to develop these masculine traits by taking part in activities and solving problems. As a result, they become easily marginalized. In most families, the mother plays the major role in educating the children, so young boys don't have a male role model to follow. The situation is similar at school. There are always more female teachers than there are males.
The lack of support for boys has resulted in many falling behind their peers academically, which experts say further shakes their confidence as they grow into young men. But things are slowly starting to change. This is survival class at the Shanghai No. 8 High School. 18-year-old Li Zhongyang is one of the students enrolled.
It is very important that we learn how to respond correctly in emergencies. When something like this really happens, we can save our lives.
Before taking part in classes like this, Li says he often relied on others to help him with even simple tasks. But the new all-boys program has changed him, giving him the confidence to be independent. The theme of survival lesson is what to do if trapped in a burning bus. Other students say the class is helpful too.
Emergencies could happen at any time. The odds are equal to each one of us. The class is like a safety lock for our own lives.
School officials say classes like these help develop the boys into becoming confident and competent men. Initially set up as 2 classes in 2012, the high school now has 6 boys-only classes.
The classes allow us to explore the full potential of our male students. To us, it means a reform in boys' education. This is a learning process for us too, turning the boys' shortcomings into strengths. We're learning how to understand them rather than influence them, to cultivate good habits rather than criticize them.
But wouldn't girls also benefit from the survival class to learn how to handle themselves in emergency situations? The staff at the high school are using the experimental classes to learn what works best for their students. The most positive elements may be applied in future semesters to both male and female students. This expert says the boys' class is a good first step in addressing the so-called crisis.
We've already realized the need to diversify the evaluation system so the schools, teachers, and parents can be liberated from the current exam-oriented education. The establishment of the boys' classes is a good way to try this out, but we still need to observe the effect. If we use their grades to evaluate the result, the diversity won't mean anything. Attempts to make a difference are limited until reform takes place.
At Howard Tong Kindergarten, parents are also noticing a difference in their sons.
I remembered there was a company outing to a nearby city on Mother's Day. He said to me, "Today is Mother's Day. Let me help you climb up the mountain." Then he carried my bag on his back. He helped me when we climbed up and then back down. He said he's a real man and can take care of me. He didn't know this when he entered the kindergarten in the first year. At that time, he was quite clingy. He wanted me to hug him and was very naughty. From many small things in daily life, I can tell how he's growing up.
Whether these boys will grow up to be the kind of men their parents want them to be won't be known for years. But parents and teachers say they're off to a good start. For Simon Asia, I'm Shu Wenjing in Shanghai.
Schools that apparently inspire confidence in its male students. But the bigger debate remains as to whether the education system should be training boys to man up. Still ahead on Assignment Asia.
chasing a dream in the slums of Mumbai, while paying it forward with an innovative game. Our stories this week focus on extraordinary education, and one man in the Indian city of Mumbai has devised a way to teach golf without clubs or proper balls. Sharon Lavelle has the story of a self-taught boy from the slums who, thanks to some creative thinking, has the chance to make it big.
गॉल्फला मी नाही चूज केला, गॉल्फनी मला चूज केला. अगर मी तो शॉट मारला नसता, तो क्लब मी हातात घेतला नसता, तो बॉल मी मारला नसता, तर मी आतापर्यंत इथे नसतो. आम्ही लोकांच्या घरी जेवण मागायचो, मी, माझा भाऊ, माझी बहीण, आणि त्या वडील खूप दारू प्यायचे. मग त्यांचा ॲक्सिडेंट झाला.
Anil dropped out of school aged 12 to caddy at a prestigious golf club which backed onto his slum. As a teenager, he struck one of the best balls of his life with borrowed clubs. Club members were astonished and supported him to start practicing. A few years later, Anil beat India's top-ranked amateur in a local match play, earning himself $2,600 and the chance of a lifetime to leave his shack and the cycle of poverty in Mumbai's slums. Rapid urbanisation has brought Mumbai's population to over 20 million, and around half live in slums, where population density is high, but access to education is limited.
माझ्या वडिलांचा ॲक्सिडेंट झाला, त्याच्यानंतर आई काम करायची, मी शाळेत जायचो. म्हणून मी पण काय केलं, मी शाळा आणि काम दोन्ही संगती केला. तर स्ट्रगल करत करत मी म्हटलं यार शाळा किंवा काम. मग त्यानंतर मी शाळा सोडून टाकली, काम करायचं चालू केलं.
Anil's story is not uncommon, and there are high school dropout rates across India. Poverty is the biggest factor.
पालकांनाही जेव्हा फायनान्शियली प्रॉब्लेम्स असतात तेव्हा पालक अभ्यासाकडे लक्ष न देता कुठून तरी इन्कम कसं ॲड होईल फॅमिलीमध्ये त्याच्याकडे लक्ष देतात. मग मुलांना शाळेमध्ये न पाठवता काम करायला पाठवणं.
While official figures state that 90% of Mumbai children are in school, Pratham's own annual surveys find dropout rates in the places they work so high that just 50 or 60% of children are actually finishing school.
आपण जेव्हा अनपढ असलो तर आपल्याला दुनिया माहिती नाही पडणार की दुनिया कशी आहे. दुनिया आपल्याला हमेशा ब्लॅक अँड व्हाईटच दिसणार. माझी मोठी मुलगी बोलते मला डॉक्टर व्हायचं आहे, माझी 2 नंबर पोरगी बोलते मला गॉल्फर व्हायचं आहे.
Anil has gone up in the world, and in an attempt to pay things forward, Anil has pioneered slum golf. Rounds are played in the shanties with plastic balls and crudely fashioned clubs.
जेव्हा मला कोणी शिकवलं, माझं स्वप्न होतं की मी शिकलो नाही कोणा संगे, कोणी मला शिकवलं नाही, तर माझं स्वप्न मी त्यांच्या हेतू पूर्ण करतोय की मी पण शिकून त्यांच्याकडनं 1 रुपया नाही घेऊन त्यांना पण माझ्यासारखा प्लेयर बनवावं.
का की त्यांनी शिकवलं गॉल्फ कशी, स्टिक कशी पकडायची, कशा पद्धतीने खेळायचं, स्टँडिंग बॉलवर ध्यान कसं द्यायचं, कशी गॉल्फ कसा खेळला जातो ते त्यांनी आम्हाला शिकवलं.
Sachin is also a caddy. Due to his mother's asthma, he also dropped out of school early and says Anil Mane is his idol.
कशी त्याला माणसावर लगत दया येईल, तो माणूस कसा बी असो.
त्याचा अगर मी आता स्लम गॉल्फ खेळतो आम्ही, ते तुम्ही म्हणू शकता की अकॅडमीची पहिली सीडी. आणि अगर जर कोणी मला हेल्प केली तर मी एक अकॅडमी खोलेल. त्या अकॅडमीमध्ये जे काय मला नाही भेटलं ते त्या मुलांना मी स्वतः देईन. एक मला असं वाटतं की ते मी जसं मेडल रॉडनी खेळलो तसं त्यांनी नाही खेळावं, जे मी बॉल मारला तो त्यांनी नाही मारावा.
But Anil's story is not one of rags to riches, at least not yet. Anil coaches and caddies for a living, and right now, most of his earnings are ploughed directly back into training and tournaments. He still lives in a 10 by 10 metre roadside shack with his wife and 4 children. Playing pro golf requires sponsorship, Anil lost his last sponsor over a year ago because of his inability to perform at critical moments. He says playing golf itself doesn't get him anxious, but knowing that his family and parents are depending solely on him has at times become overwhelming.
कर्नालमध्ये तिथं टोटल स्कोर माझा होता 9 अंडर आणि जिथे लखनौमध्ये सेकंड आलो आणि या दोन्ही मॅची मी जितता हारलो बिकॉज त्या लास्ट पार्टला माझे हात कापत होते. जेव्हा मी 2011मध्ये सेकंड आलो तेव्हा मला वाटलं की मी चांगला खेळू शकतो आणि तेव्हा मला वाटलं की मी आज चांगला खेळणार आणि मी खेळणं कधी बंद करणार आणि मी आता पण माझी तर एक ड्रीम आहे मला एक तरी मॅच जिंकायची. माझा टार्गेट आहे एशियन टूर आत्तापर्यंत. अगर तर मला एशियन टूर खेळायचं आहे तर वर्षाला मला कमीत कमी 15 ते 20 लाख रुपये खर्च आहे. 15 ते 20 लाख तेवढे तर मी अफोर्ड करू नाही शकत. म्हणून मी आता माझ्या मॅचेस चालू आहेत आणि अगर तर मी मॅच खेळायला गेलो यांच्या एज्युकेशनवर मी तेवढं हे करू नाही शकत.
आणि आमच्याहून चांगलं आम्ही दोघं पण असं तर आमच्याहून चांगलं भविष्य त्यांचं शिक्षण पण
त्यांच्या मेन त्यांच्या एज्युकेशनच्या फीस भरायला मला आतूनही प्रॉब्लेम होतो. आणि माझा मुलगा त्या दिवशी मी गेलो मी आता चाललो होतो तर माझी बायको म्हणली आपल्या पोराला इथे शाळा टाकतो आणि अशा शाळेमध्ये बोलत होती जिथं माझी कॅपॅसिटीच नाही तेवढी फीस जमा करायची. आता या दोघांपैकी जर कोणी विचारलं फॅमिली किंवा गॉल्फ त्याचा अर्थ म्हणजे आपण दोन्ही डोळे फोडतो. दोघांपैकी एक डोळा फोडतो आणि मला तसं नाही करायचं आहे. मला दोन्ही डोळ्यांनी बघायचं आहे. जे त्यांच्यावर घडलं ते माझ्यावर नाही घडलं पाहिजे. जे माझ्यावर घडलं ते त्यांच्यावर नाही आणि त्यांच्यावर घडलं तर माझं एवढं काम करण्यामध्ये काय राहील काहीच नाही. आता त्यांच्यासाठी जगायचं आणि त्यांचं भविष्य उज्ज्वल करायचं.
For Assignment Asia, I'm Sharon Lovell in Mumbai.
A man determined to pursue his dreams for his family's future. There's more on this and all the stories you've seen today on our website, assignment-asia.com.
There you can share your thoughts and contribute story ideas for future editions of the program.
That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Barnaby Lowe. Thanks for watching and join us again on Assignment Asia.